Welcome to a presentation regarding residential contractor fraud in Louisiana, presented by attorney Carl Barkemeyer. Now, the question I get asked quite often is, what is the difference between home improvement fraud and residential contractor fraud in Louisiana? Well, in 2014, the legislature replaced home improvement fraud with the new statute called residential contractor fraud, in an effort to make it easier to prosecute contractors, basically trying to make it to where the statute now has some teeth in it. So let's look at residential contractor fraud. What is it? Residential contractor fraud is the misappropriation or intentional taking of anything of value which belongs to another, either without the consent of the other to the misappropriation or taking, or by means of fraudulent conduct, practices, or representations by a person who has contracted to perform any home improvement or residential construction, or has subcontracted for the performance of any home improvement or residential construction. It may be inferred that it's a misappropriation or intentional taking when any of the seven situations arise. Now, in home improvement fraud, it used to be just the first three. That was included in home improvement fraud. Now, the legislature has 4, 5, 6, and 7, which, they're easy things to prove on a prosecutor, such as knowingly makes a material misrepresentation of fact in any application for a permit required by a state, knowingly makes a material misrepresentation of fact in any lien placed on the property, fails to possess the required license for home improvements or residential construction, and knowingly employs a subcontractor who does not possess the required license by applicable state, municipal, or parochial statute. So let's give an example of residential contractor fraud. One example is contractor receives a down payment and doesn't start the job within 45 days. Going back to the statute here, you see number 1, which has always been there. The contractor fails to perform any work during a 45-day period of time or longer after receiving payment, unless a longer period is specified in the contract. Contractors need to specify that. Basically, what it's doing is trying to protect the homeowner from situations where they give a down payment or initial draw to the contractor for materials, say, and the contractor never starts the job. Another common example is when the contractor files a permit application in the name of a different entity in that jurisdiction, trying to get a permit, says he's with another construction company or contractor when that's not actually who he is. Another example is when a contractor does work for the homeowner without the necessary license. So you got to have a license. Another situation is when he hires an unlicensed sub to do the work, basically allowing the sub to use his license. So let's look at the penalties for residential contractor fraud. What we got to look at is the alleged value of the misappropriation or intentional taking. So if that value is less than $1,000, which isn't a whole lot of money, then we're looking at a misdemeanor charge. And the sentencing range is imprisonment for not more than 6 months. So it could be 0 days, it could be 6 months. However, once we bump up that alleged value to $1,000 or more, but less than $5,000, then that becomes a felony. We're looking at not more than 5 years in prison. And then when the alleged value goes from $5,000 or more, but less than $25,000, then the sentencing range is now not more than 10 years. If the misappropriation amounts to a value of $25,000 or more, then the sentencing range is not more than 20 years. Must keep in mind, too, that restitution must be paid. So the judge will order that if the defendant is placed on probation. So if you're a contractor and you've been charged with residential contractor fraud or any other criminal charge, or you have any other dispute relating to contracting, then you likely need a contractor defense attorney, and we may be able to help you. So contact us if that is the case.